Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, which is exploring the revised reading framework with Pearson Primary. We're just going to get started now. I'm going to turn my video off so that I'm not distracting you. And we'll get started. So this webinar has been recorded and we will send you that recording as a follow-up email. I'm Nicola Romaine and I'm the National Primary Literacy Advisor here at Pearson. So the DfE's new reading framework, as we know, is absolutely packed full of guidance for teaching reading across the whole of primary school and on into secondary. So whether you teach year 1, year 5 or year 8, there's absolutely something in the framework that's relevant to you. It's a long, detailed document, as I'm sure you're aware, and it can take some time to digest that. So to help you to quickly identify the sections that are most relevant to you and your role in the classroom, we've outlined the main take-home messages of each section, and that is the aim of this webinar is to provide you with that. And so in a summary of the key actions from the framework itself, and also to provide guidance on how the reading framework aligns to our early language and reading portfolio. So the main updates in this new revised framework are as follows. So it sets out some of the research underpinning the importance of talk and stories and systematic synthetic phonics in reception. It supports schools to evaluate the teaching of reading from reception all the way up to year 9. It provides practical support for high quality teaching of systematic synthetic phonics, fluency and comprehension. And it explains the importance of systematic synthetic phonics for older pupils at risk of failing to learn to read because of barriers to decoding. So that's a really important addition. It supports schools in motivating pupils to develop that love of reading. And it also supports schools to work with parents because, of course, we know what a difference that makes, that engagement with parents and that homeschool kind of link when it comes to children's reading is super important. So they're the main kind of updates, if you like. So how does the new reading framework align with the Ofsted inspection framework? So the overarching message here from both of those guidance documents is that schools should be determined that every pupil will learn to read and prioritise reading as a foundation for future learning. Enabling children to access the rest of the curriculum is also super important, and to help them avoid falling behind. And also that particular attention will be paid to pupils who are reading below age-related expectations, so that lowest 20%, and to assess how well a school is teaching phonics and supporting all children to become confident and fluent readers. So that's that overarching message from both of those. Okay, so we're going to now walk through the different sections of the reading framework, and we're going to unpick the detail around those different sections. So the first one, section 1, is the importance of reading as a conceptual model. So the key message here is that children who read for pleasure become better readers. And statistically, good readers have better educational outcomes, a better range of life chances, and better emotional and mental health than those who struggle with reading. So learning to read well and enjoying reading really, really matters, both for individual young people and for all of us, in fact. But current statistics on reading enjoyment are depressing. And the National Literacy Trust research in 2023 showed that reading enjoyment in 8 to 18-year-olds was at its absolute lowest level since 2005, and that's when records began. So it's even more urgent to focus on helping all children to enjoy reading because of those stark and depressing statistics. The simple view of reading, which underpins the national curriculum, is still the best conceptual model to explain how successful readers operate. It focuses on just 2 key factors: language comprehension and word reading, which is decoding. So before children can read, we can develop their language comprehension through listening and speaking, and while they learn to decode through systematic synthetic phonics. So once children can read, their language comprehension grows by reading a lot. And we see that coming through the reading framework document, that kind of nod to reading miles and reading a lot. as well as by hearing books read aloud and discussing their reading. And the more children read, the more they enjoy it. That's a natural process, and the more they see themselves as readers and gaining that confidence. So getting them reading more is absolutely crucial. So children who aren't yet reading fluently after year one need timely and targeted support. So this means using systematic synthetic phonics to teach them systematically and fill in the gaps in their phonic knowledge. This goes for struggling readers in secondary school as well as for those who are falling behind in year two. And these children need to learn to read fluently and independently. So if we don't teach them to read, they won't be able to access the curriculum. And of course, as they move up the school, they'll get further and further behind. And as a consequence, further and further behind in their engagement too. So how can Pearson support this aspect of the reading framework? So we have Book Club Phonics, which is our Department of Education approved phonics teaching programme, and it aims to help all children in your school learn to read by the age of 6 in a fun, engaging and accessible way. We are partnered with Oxford and Assessment to bring you the Nuffield Early Language Intervention, which is an integrated programme for 4 to 5-year-olds that's proven with efficacy to improve language and behaviour. And it includes both intervention. It also now includes a whole class companion. So that is to enable language intervention to be brought to the whole of the reception cohort, which is absolutely fantastic. And then the benefits of Nelly can be extended by using reading screens. So the clue's in the name, it's a screener. It's the fastest and most accurate way to identify children all the way at primary who would benefit from reading interventions and additional support. And it provides reading ages so that you can really have, and it provides you the granular view of children's strengths and weaknesses with regards to reading as well. Moving on to unpicking the detail of section 2, which is language comprehension in reception and key stage 1. So as we know, developing children's talk and vocabulary from the earliest years is absolutely crucial and a good predictor of later language development too. And by offering children a language-rich environment in school, we can help reduce the language gap. The difference in language skills and vocabulary between children from language-rich homes and those from homes with less rich and varied spoken language. The reading framework references back and forth talk between adults and children as being really important for all age groups. It means that that teachers should be thinking out loud and modelling how to use new vocabulary and grammar, asking and answer questions, extending children's vocabularies and explaining new words, and helping children express their ideas clearly and providing them with authentic opportunities to talk as well. Children need to learn how to listen as well. This is a key aspect. And ideas include having an agreed signal to prompt children to listen, modelling good listening yourself, reinforcing and praising good listening when you notice it, and making sure the classroom isn't too noisy. It's a really important part of children's listening. Things like paired talk between children can boost confidence and helps you to engage the whole class. So not just a few confident children, for example. You can listen into pairs conversations, correct any misconceptions, and select children to feed back to the whole group. It's a better way to involve everyone rather than asking for hands up and just picking one child to respond. It may seem obvious, but sharing poetry and rhymes helps to build children's emotional connection to language, especially in reception in year 1. Learning poems and songs, using a call and response technique helps children to join in gradually, and it really strengthens their grasp of new vocabulary. It can also help children to tune into the sounds in words. Reading aloud, another thread that we see featured in the framework, is absolutely crucial. And the framework itself has tips for selecting read aloud books, including gripping narratives that prompt a strong response. So emotional responses like curiosity and laughter and empathy, a wide range of words to extend children's vocabulary, books that are relevant to children's lives and reflect all backgrounds and cultures, books that help children to understand people whose lives are different from their own, including stories from around the world, traditional and modern tales, different types of fiction and non-fiction. Preparation is really key to a good read aloud experience, and the framework also has several helpful suggestions to support teachers with this, as well as for follow-up activities, things like dramatisation and reading linked role play, and using reading to extend children's vocabulary as well. So a wealth of tips in the framework with regards to reading aloud, which really supports children's language comprehension. So the keys to developing language comprehension and vocabulary, in short, as you can see on the slide there, are to provide opportunities to extend children's language and vocabulary in each of the early years foundation stage areas of learning, and in year 1 for each subject, teaching children routines for back and forth talk and using activities that develop each child's language, modelling what good listening looks like from the beginning. Good listening needs to be deliberately taught and praised. Choosing books carefully and making sure that they're great for reading aloud from reception to year 6. Making story time and poetry a priority, and ensuring that teachers read stories and texts aloud to children from reception up to year 6. And encouraging and supporting families to read aloud to children at home. So really working with families around what the benefits are of reading aloud, providing additional small group story times for children with speech, language and communication needs as well is super useful. So how can we support from Pearson? So we have our book club shared, which is a structured, systematic approach to vocabulary progression for reception and Key Stage 1. These are beautifully illustrated books which introduce children to rich and challenging words from across the curriculum. It inspires children to become confident speakers and fluent readers as they explore cross-curricular subjects and share stories with their class. Again, we have the Nuffield Early Language Intervention, which is proven to support and improve language and behaviour. And of course, as I said before, it includes both an intervention and a whole class offer. And then we also have our book club reading corner, which is a library of books for reception to year 6 on exciting topics to encourage and motivate children to read for pleasure. It's also ideal for children to read aloud to themselves. Moving on then to section 3, word reading and spelling. So this section gives a summary of the main principles of teaching decoding for reading and encoding for spelling using SSP. It also covers teaching handwriting and composition, and it looks at how to organise resources using decodable books and assessing reading. So there's a lot of detail here, which will be absolutely familiar to teachers at reception in year 1, but maybe less familiar to those working with older age groups. It's really important for everyone to understand the principles, because teachers of any age group may have pupils who need to fill gaps in their phonics knowledge. So if phonics is new to you, have a read of the full section in the framework from page 40 onwards. And the keys to ensuring phonics is the route to supporting all pupils with reading. You can see on the slide there, assessing all struggling readers in Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 in phonics, adapting the school timetable to protect time for support for those that need it, prioritising reading for those children who need support and are at risk of falling further behind, using an SSP that provides a consistent approach and fidelity to that programme, providing a good range of high-low readers, so those high engagement but low reading level books to engage children that read at a lower level, and making sure that pupils work at a phonics level that is in direct response to regular assessment. That's really important too. So how can we support? So we have our book club phonics, as I referenced earlier, which has decodable reading books as part of our of the programme itself, that validated systematic synthetic phonics programme. And we also have Book Club Independent, which has decodable reading books from phase 1 to phase 5 and is fully aligned to the Book Club Phonics progression. So that's an additional batch of decodable reading books that have diversity and reading for pleasure at their heart as well, which can really kind of supplement your decodable readers as well. And they gradually introduce children to a variety of layouts while still being fully decodable to phase 5. Section 4, developing fluency. Teaching children to read fluently is super important, because fluent reading frees up the brain to concentrate on understanding what's being read, and it also builds children's motivation and enjoyment. Fluency means reading with accuracy and appropriate speed. Accuracy is the most important, because you can't read with speed until you can decode accurately. Rereading is also really helpful for building fluency. When they reread, children can concentrate on meaning, pace, and expression rather on just that decoding. So that's really, really important. Also, learning to read words at a glance without overt decoding is really important too. And rereading helps to establish this skill further. So when children are still learning phonics, you can teach fluent reading using a decodable book that's matched to the children's current stage of reading, and practice decoding unfamiliar words from the book and explaining their meanings before children read. So providing children with a purpose for rereading, such as focusing on plot or practicing reading words at a glance, is really, really important as well. And it gives that kind of additional purpose. So when children can decode, their fluency develops through reading, listening to, and discussing more complex books. And reading aloud to children is still key at this stage and can really encourage them to reread and read more demanding books themselves. And that modelling of how to read aloud to children, how they can do that themselves, what effective reading looks like by deciding what to emphasise, where to pause. Strategies like echo reading, where you read and the children repeat a line after you, are really effective as well and are referenced in the framework. And choral reading as well, where children read together to practice reading in time with one another, are really good techniques, and these can develop fluency as well. And then the keys to developing fluency there, just summarised for you on the slide. So teachers continue to develop fluency whilst children learn to decode and beyond, providing opportunities for pupils to reread texts from reception to year 6. All teachers to read aloud to model fluent reading, and pupils to have frequent opportunities to read aloud themselves are really important too. Strategies such as echo and choral reading, making sure that all staff are trained in how to match texts to children's fluency level. This is really important. It's something that comes up a lot. And ensuring texts provide the appropriate level of challenge for each child. Supporting children in small groups to provide extra practice to build fluency, and providing books from a range of genres that support engagement. Can be read aloud to read in school and at home as well. And how can we from Pearson help? So in year 2 and Key Stage 2, those book club independent books are levelled. So they move from being around phonic phases to phase 5 to being levelled by book bands. So book club independent books at phase 5 or orange book band provide that perfect transition from fully decodable books. And they start to focus at this point more on increasing the stamina and fluency and on developing and deepening their comprehension skills. The books increase in language complexity and in length gradually, maintaining children's confidence by moving on in small achievable steps. We've got shared there again, book club shared for reception and Key Stage 1, which are fabulous and meant to be read aloud by teachers for that expression and intonation modelling. We've got plays to read as well, or shared plays, as you can see there, if you have the ebook subscription from us. These are irresistible, a range of original short plays created for groups of 6 children to be read together, really supporting oracy, really supporting fluency. The idea is to read the play aloud and then swap the parts until all 6 readers are confident with the new words. So it really supports language as well. They can also be performed as a reading to the rest of the class. So it supports that children reading aloud as well. So we've got plays for Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. And they're specially written by a top selection of brilliant children's authors. And they also feature some titles that have been written by Julia Donaldson, who obviously was the Children's Laureate and author of The Gruffalo. We also have their rapid reading, which are those high-low readers. So high interest, low reading level books that take Key Stage 2 children from a reading age of 5 up to 9.5. So there are hundreds of fiction and non-fiction texts here in ebooks with a variety of engaging topics. So from animals to space travel to really hook in even the most reluctant of your older readers. And they can practice as well by rereading these books. And we've also got Reading Corner there again, where children can choose books based on their interest, which really helps to motivate them to read. Section 5, unpicking the detail here. So pupils who need the most support. So when we're teaching reading and reception in year 1, it's really important to make sure all pupils can keep up with the pace of the school's chosen SSP programme, whichever that might be. Assessment should quickly pick up children who are falling behind and need extra support, checking if there's a specific reason, such as hearing or visual impairment or speech, language and communication needs. So whatever the reason they're falling behind in reception in year 1, these children need extra daily timetabled phonics practice. So, for example, in Book Club Phonics, we have catch-up guidance that runs alongside the core whole class programme. Focusing on filling any gaps in their phonic knowledge and skills step by step is really important. Some children may not get much support from their parents at home, for example, with reading, and it's important to give those children extra time reading with adults in school. In key stages 2 and 3, some pupils still need extra support with decoding, fluency, or both. So these children need identifying as quickly as possible. In primary, you can use the school's SSP programme to assess their reading and identify what help they need. But in secondary, it can help to use a standardised reading test to identify their reading age. Children with a reading age of 8 or below generally will probably need to follow an SSP programme to fill in the gaps in their phonic knowledge, even at secondary school. And it's really important to pinpoint the right starting point in the programme for them, as not all children need to start at the very beginning. And of course, research shows that an SSP programme is the most effective way to teach phonics to all pupils of any age or ability, including those with SEND or dyslexia. And of course, it's important when working with older pupils that we are careful in selecting the SSP to make sure that the approach is age appropriate for those children. And then how can Pearson support this? So most of the books in the Book Club family, you can see them on the left-hand side there of the slide, are available in the online library that we have on Active Learn Primary, which means that children can access them on electronic devices as well as on paper. So many of those books have audio options, meaning children can listen to a fluent reading of the text and copy it as they learn to increase their own fluency and expression. And research does signpost the fact that reading digitally and ebooks are especially or particularly supportive of children that are less engaged with reading and have more specific needs. So there are also motivating quizzes and checkpoints as part of the Book Club family of books, and also accessibility tools as well, which really support children with additional needs, such as Zoom functionality, which help to make the text accessible for all. Book Club Phonics, I've mentioned before, is designed as a whole class mastery approach at its core, and that's got a catch-up strand which runs alongside, which means that there's a strong emphasis on ensuring that children keep up with their peers. And then we have rapid phonics as well, which I haven't mentioned. So rapid phonics is a synthetic phonics intervention intended to improve decoding skills and reading fluency. And it teaches the relationship of word sounds to their corresponding letter groups in a structured way. So it's an intervention. And ideally, we would suggest that this is used from the spring term of year 2 if children still have gaps, identified gaps in their phonic knowledge. Rapid reading, I've mentioned before, those high interest, low level reading books that can take Key Stage 2 children from a reading age of 5 up to 9.5. And then reading screen, I've mentioned earlier, which is that quick and accurate digital assessment of word and non-word reading. And when it's used with its kind of sister app, Language Screen and Reading Screen together can plot the results automatically on a simple view of reading graph, which is really, really useful, a really, really strong resource, which can help you to identify the nature and extent of any possible language or reading difficulties. So if you want to take your identification of children's reading needs to another level and really, really be able to granularly pinpoint their needs, then Reading Screen and Language Screen are really a good solution for you. Section 7, choosing and organising books. So while children are still reading phonics, or still learning phonics, sorry, that I should say, they need to read decodable books that are matched to the school's SSP programme. We know that. And this includes books they take home to read, as well as books they read in class. Once they've mastered decoding, they need to access a very wide range of different types of books, including picture books, easy page turners, poetry, high-low books. copies of novels they've heard read aloud by the class teacher, non-fiction linked to curriculum topics, topics of general interest, etc. So when you're choosing books to share or to display in the library or book corner for children who can decode, look for big ideas, things that are going to grab children's interest, you know, across a breadth of diverse writers and characters, and reflecting the diversity in society, those that have rich language, books that will develop children's knowledge, including books linked to the curriculum. So a real breadth of genres and forms. It's good to include pupils as well in helping to choose books so they become familiar with the book offering that is available to them. As I said, including high-low books and easy page turners as well that can really motivate children to keep reading. Also, if you're considering your library or book area, trying to present the books face out to grab children's attention is a really good tip, and this is featured in the reading framework as well. Lots of tips around book corners in that guidance. How can Pearson support? So again, our ebook library, so in print and digital format, the book club books provide the rich diet and variety that children need to become fluent and skilled readers across the range of the book club family. You can see them there on the screen. And as I said earlier on, we'll be following up from this webinar with an email of the recording. And if you want more information, then please do reach out and get in touch with us for more information, and we can provide you with that. Section 8 is developing a reading for pleasure culture. So all pupils at year 2 and above need to put in the reading miles that is threaded throughout that framework if they're going to develop as readers. And reading for pleasure is the key to this. It's much easier to commit time to reading if you actually enjoy it. The keys to developing reading for pleasure I've got on the slide there. Reading for pleasure works best as a whole school priority with whole school commitment and regular evaluation. So some of the strategies for fostering reading for pleasure would be providing story time for every Key Stage 2 class, as well as reception in Key Stage 1, at least 4 times a week for 20 minutes, as a powerful driver for improving pupils' reading and all-round education and having a positive impact on their social and emotional well-being as well. Ensuring all children have the opportunity to listen to a wide range of whole books during their time at school, rather than just a series of extracts. Considering where time for reading can be set aside so that it happens regularly and without interruption. Allowing teachers to get to time to get to know all children as readers is really important, what their likes, dislikes and interests are. Teacher subject knowledge is super important. And having a range of promotional activities as well, you know, World Book Day, that kind of thing, to hook children into reading. How can we help from Pearson? So I've spoken about Reading Corner before. So those books from reception to year 6 on exciting topics that children can choose themselves to encourage and motivate children to read for pleasure. And of course, for reception in Key Stage 1, the book club shared books, ideal to be read aloud by teachers for that expression and intonation modelling. Section 9 is reading across the curriculum. So what children learn in other curriculum subjects helps to build their background knowledge, and this in turn enhances their comprehension of everything they read. So reading across the curriculum is super important, and having talk and discussion is crucial and a crucial part of learning in all lessons across Key Stage 2 and 3, including English. It's really important to select age-appropriate, interesting and accessible books to support children's learning in each and every curriculum area. So paying attention to the books that support subjects is really important. So reading about a topic obviously helps to deepen pupils' understanding, and when they read, they can control the pace of their own learning. And you can help prepare pupils before they read a curriculum topic text by introducing the topic and any relevant text features in the book, so tables and maps and things like that, and discussing and explaining new subject-specific vocabulary ahead of time for pupils that can't yet read the text independently, reading it aloud for them until they can read that for themselves. And again, coming back to our core reading programme, which is Book Club, really helps you to develop confident and motivated readers. So altogether, it combines over 500 books with interactive ebooks as well, and an online reading world. So you can allocate books for individual pupils for home reading and assess their progress instantly. And again, as I said, there's an enormous range of fiction, non-fiction and poetry to keep children engaged and develop a love of reading. Section 10, teaching reading in the English lesson. So this section mainly addresses how to teach reading to children who have mastered phonics at year 2 and above, and explains why it matters to continue to teach reading skills to these children. So through teaching reading, you can introduce children to a wider range of literature and non-fiction than they could read independently. So you can also model and support their comprehension and fluency in the English lesson, and give them opportunities to think about and discuss more challenging books now that they're ready for that. And the reading framework stresses that comprehension is an outcome and not a skill to practice. So instead of teaching discrete comprehension skills and strategies, such as inference and prediction, the advice is to show pupils how to construct a mental model of the text as they read. And this involves using background knowledge and clues from the text to help understand the text as children read it. So the framework gives detailed guidance and examples to show how this works. So that's really supportive of teachers' subject knowledge on pages 113 to 115, with ideas for how to model the process out loud for children, so that think aloud, for example. So for skilled readers, we know that comprehension strategies are normally used unconsciously and all together rather than deliberately activated one at a time, but it can be helpful to directly teach comprehension strategies if children are struggling with particular aspects of comprehension. So the advice is to keep any direct teaching of individual strategies short, term, brief and targeted. And it's best to try and stay in the story when we're using a book. So in other words, don't spoil the first read of an exciting book by stopping to discuss things like grammar and word choices and other aspects of the author's craft. And then from us, how can we support this kind of additional kind of deeper comprehension? So we have Book Club Guided at Key Stage 2, which uses a dialogic approach to help children achieve comprehension mastery with rich texts. So deepening their understanding and comprehension with high quality, rich guided reading books that children would recommend themselves. So that's well worth a look for this aspect as well of the reading framework, which is teaching reading in the English lesson. Section 11, national assessments. So this section takes a brief look at the 3 national assessments carried out during the primary school years: the EYFS profile, the Year 1 phonics screening check, and the end of Key Stage 2 assessment, so SATs, basically. You'll be very familiar with these already, but the framework makes a few additional points that are handy to bear in mind. So the key messages that the EYFS profile is a summative assessment completed at the end of reception, assessing children's performance against the 17 early learning goals connected to 7 areas of learning, including literacy. The Year 1 phonics screening check assesses whether children can read a selection of 20 real words and 20 pseudo words that use common GPCs, grapheme phoneme correspondences taught during reception in Year 1. The pseudo words are phonically regular words that don't have any meaning in English, and the phonics check doesn't assess children's comprehension or reading speed. And just as a side note, the advice is not to prepare children for the screening check by practicing lots of pseudo words. It's better to practice phonics using real words, and their blending skill should be developed sufficiently. And then the Key Stage 2 assessments happen in Year 6, of course, and are essential check of children's English and math skills in prep for secondary school. And that reading test focuses on comprehension. And how can we help from Pearson? So all the book club strands are designed to help you prepare children thoroughly for all of those assessments. They provide a carefully structured teaching progression, which helps to ensure children make progress at the expected rate for them, gradually extending their decoding and comprehension skills and developing their fluency. Section 12, leadership and management of reading. So the head teacher has ultimate responsibility for ensuring that reading is taught effectively and that the school has a good reading culture and a good reading offer. So this involves instilling high expectations for all pupils to become readers, promoting a culture of reading for pleasure, and ensuring that teachers read aloud to all pupils from reception to Year 6. And that's an overarching message, ensuring that all children get the support they need to achieve age-related expectations, making sure that all teachers have the training they need in the form of ongoing PD, ensuring that ongoing assessment is sufficiently frequent and detailed to identify any children that begin to fall behind, and providing that targeted support immediately, supporting children's access to books as well, and involving parents and carers. Head teachers also need to make sure that there is teaching time to support reading interventions. That's a real focus. This may mean withdrawing pupils from other lessons if there's no alternative that can be found. And also, head teachers should appoint literacy or reading leads to manage the teaching of reading. The reading lead should be an expert in the school's SSP, for example. And leaders can also help reducing teachers' workload by ensuring they use the resources produced by the school's SSP programme rather than having to produce their own. Many of the book club strands, so how can we help, provide tailored PD, which I wanted to flag up, to help ensure that reading leads and all teachers have all of the support they need to implement the programme. So, for example, as part of Book Club Phonics, we provide in-person and online training, SSP training, and also product training for the SSP itself. We also have PD training for both rapid reading and rapid phonics, and for Wordsmith, which explores how Wordsmith fosters a love of reading. And within the Book Club Reading Corner strand, we have Reading for Pleasure PD, which has been created in conjunction with Teresa Kremin, which is very, very useful as well. And finally, section 13, supporting pupils reading in Key Stage 3. So this section is addressed to secondary teachers and essentially recaps the main points in the framework, which links to specific sections that are relevant to Key Stage 3. So the key messages here are around struggling readers, the fact that struggling readers can find the transition to secondary school particularly challenging. So it's really important to quickly identify those pupils who are not reading at the expected standard and put interventions in place to support them. And teachers are directed to different sections of the framework. So, for example, section 5, pupils who need the most support. Section 9, reading across the curriculum. Secondary teachers need to understand how reading is taught. So this links to section 1. Section 2, language and comprehension and reception in Key Stage 1, which supports secondary teachers in knowing where children's reading journey begins. Section 3, word reading and spelling, and Section 4, developing fluency. So all teachers need to understand how complex reading is and how pupils become skilled readers. And that links to Section 6, what skilled readers can do. It's really important to keep focusing on engaging pupils with reading throughout Key Stage 3, and that's an overarching message from the framework as well. And that links to Section 7, choosing and organising books, and Section 8, developing a reading for pleasure culture. And that brings us to the end of the webinar, and I'm hoping that provides you with an overview of the key sections of the framework and how we from Pearson can help to support you with the resources to implement those different aspects in your school. As I said, we'll be sending you the webinar via email, and please do get in touch if you would like us to help you with implementation and support you with that in your school. Thank you for joining. Goodbye.